infrastructure.
A long campaign is now.
This is the car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is On Assignment.
Welcome everybody. On Assignment coming to you now from VOA's Studio 55 in Washington. I'm Alex Villarreal here with my co-host Imran Siddiqui.
Thank you, Alex. We got another jam-packed roundup of stories behind the stories for you this week. First up, a program teaching journalists covering conflict zones how to stay safe.
Then a student in Malawi and his cutting-edge answer to a problem in Africa's rural areas.
We go to the U.S. state of Texas to talk about oil prices and why they're so low lately.
And we meet another one of Africa's young leaders of the future.
Keep it right here. On Assignment starts right now.
Islamic State militants' recent beheading of another Western aid worker is a bleak reminder of the dangers facing people working in conflict areas. And it's not just humanitarians who are being targeted. Militants have kidnapped and beheaded journalists as well.
Responding to this reality is an innovative program in Washington that zeroes in on these risks and teaches journalists and others working in danger zones how to reduce those risks. VOA's Julie Tabo went to check it out and tells all to On Assignment's Philip Alexo. Take a look.
This is James Wright Foley.
In August, American journalist James Foley was brutally executed by the Islamic jihadist group ISIS. Ellen Shearer knew James Foley. Foley was Shearer's student, and of course she teaches at the Medill School of Journalism on covering conflict, terrorism, and national security. The 11-week course in Washington is designed to help journalism graduates prepare for assignments in hostile environments.
How involved is this training course?
It's a pretty intense course. A lot of classroom instruction that goes over the culture of the U.S. military. They go over State Department, but also it's about security as well. It's also about training. And
how do I know that something is suspicious?
Another important component of the curriculum is a hostile environment training workshop.
What was it like for you covering that? Did it feel intense, or what did you get out of it?
It was intense.
Okay.
They don't tell you exactly what's going to happen. So we had that surprise element as well as the students. So there's about 10 students who were in the class. And after the first aid training, after the self-defense training, and a certain amount of preparation that something is coming to put you to the test.
A bomb goes off. Bullets fly and field reporters scramble for cover, but they must also tend to the injured.
And then they realize, oh my goodness, half of their comrades have been wounded.
What are you going to do with these casualties here?
And these are, of course, professional actors who are pretending to be wounded. They have a knife coming out of their arm, bullet wounds, gaping hole in their side. And all these students who've just newly learned how to deal with this have to attend to those who've been injured.
They do teach journalists what to do when they're kidnapped.
Workshop organizer Frank Smythe speaks from experience.
Myself and another colleague ended up spending 18 days in captivity under Saddam Hussein's regime. So that was something that was an experience that took me a long time to get over, but I realized there are things that people need to learn before they go into these kinds of environments.
So if you're there, for example, to report a story, if they were to take 5 of you and isolate you, you better make sure you're all saying the same thing, right? So if you're there to do a story, all of you are going to say, we're here to do a story. And I think doing things like, if you're blindfolded, trying to write down or sort of have any kind of evidence that you're tracking where you're going or things like that. They said, no, do it all in your head. You don't want anything written down because that may be used against you. So simple, small things like that.
While the conflicts class did not save James Foley, Shearer hopes it will save other reporters who are risking their lives to share their stories with the world.
More than 40 journalists have been killed on the job this year around the world, 10 in Syria. The Committee to Protect Journalists, which reports the figures, says last year the toll was at least 70 journalists, 29 in Syria and 10 in Iraq.
But we're taking a break now. When we return, I talk with one of our VOA English to Africa reporters about an inventor in Malawi and his award-winning idea. You're watching On Assignment. A Malawi University student is making his mark on the global stage with an innovation he calls the Padoka Charger. The device enables people living in rural areas to charge their phones using an unlikely source, the bicycle. The invention won Mixon Falawaki first place in the ideas stage of the 2014 Global Innovation Through Science and Technology competition in Morocco. And joining me right now is Paul Nadiho of VOA's English to Africa. Thank you so much for joining me. How did you find this guy?
Interesting question. I found him on Facebook, and then later on I decided to send him a friend request. I replied, and we started the chat. A couple months later, I got on a plane, went to Malawi. I landed in Lilongwe, the capital. Then I started talking to him. He told me he's in another place called Zomba, Malawi. It's about 300 miles from Lilongwe. Then I was like, okay, how do I get this guy? I said, you know what? I rented a car, drove out there. It took me about, 6 hours to get there, and finally got the guy. He's like, you know what? Oh, my staff is at the university. Then we had to drive another 60 miles to go to the university to see his innovation.
All right. So we're talking about this invention that charges phones using the bicycles. How does that work?
I mean, it's very, very basic technology. Anybody can do it. Grandpas, young moms, young people can do it. It's just pedaling a bicycle. Like, let's say if you wanted to ride a bicycle, the way you pedal, that's what generates the power. There is a simple thing that it's called the motor that rolls on the wheel. And so when you pedal, that thing rolls on the wheel and it produces enough energy that generates power into the battery charger. He has a converter. He has all it figured out. So whenever you pedal, it transfers the current into usable energy that charges the phone.
So how does it work? You take a cell phone charger and you plug it somewhere in the bicycle.
The power goes into like a charger, and rather it goes into like a storage facility. Then from the storage facility to the charger, because it has to be compatible for the phone, optimal for the phone. So what he does is there are two stages. Power generated goes into like a storage place, then from the storage place to the phone, and you can charge any type of phone, any tablet. He's even looking at charging like a PC on it.
Like laptops and PCs?
Absolutely.
All right. And Android phones work, iPhones, all kinds of phones can be
I
charged.
tried my phone a couple times, and within a couple minutes, it just charged. I was out of battery, and when I started charging, it just charged. By the time I finished the interview, my phone was at 100%.
Did you get a chance to ask the gentleman how did he come up with this idea?
Well, Malawi, people in Malawi predominantly use bicycles as a means of getting around, transportation. So he figured out that most of the people who have these bicycles also have phones, but they didn't have a way of charging phones because they don't have enough electricity, later on enough to charge their phones. So he said, you know what, if I can come up with an innovation that can help these guys who are always riding their bicycles to charge their phones, then he came up with the idea of the Padoka charger. So it's a very simple, basic technology that anybody, if you have it on your phone, you can charge anything. And his goal is really to, because people use it for transportation, his goal is to have those people who use those bicycles as taxis to charge phones for their clients while they are. So it's a business. When you look at it, it has a business component to it.
It's a great idea. In 30 seconds, if you can tell me any idea when this will go into full-scale production?
One, he needs funding. I don't think he has enough funding yet. And secondly, it's still in its infancy. He needs to develop the technology so that it can be adapted by any manufacturer. So I think it's going to be a while before he goes into production.
Fantastic story. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul Nadiho, VOA's English to Africa service.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. We're taking another break. On the other side, those oil and gas prices have been going down for a while now. What's up with that? You're watching On Assignment. The world price of oil has dropped more than 30% in recent months, giving many economies a needed boost. but driving down profits for oil producers.
Right, and profits have also been down for companies that service oil fields and operations. But as VOA Houston correspondent Greg Flakes tells me, these low oil prices are not expected to last long. Greg, why is it that we're seeing oil prices now at such a low level?
Well, the reason is basic supply and demand. The supply of oil has increased dramatically, largely due to the fracturing and horizontal drilling that was developed here in Texas and is now spread around the country. So North America is producing a lot of oil. Canada as well is producing more oil than it had. So with that increased production here in North America, you also have a decrease in demand worldwide. So those two factors, you know, the supply going up and demand going down, account for much of this current decrease in oil price.
Jim Crane is an energy expert at Rice University.
So the shale production that's entering the market and you know, pushing other sources of supply you know, that used to come to the U.S. Away from the U.S., and they're trying to find markets for that.
Crane says weakening economies in China and Europe also are factors driving down demand.
So, Greg, what's been OPEC's role in all of this?
OPEC's role at the moment is rather minimal because OPEC doesn't have the power it used to. In the 1970s, OPEC countries produced something like 60% of the oil that was consumed worldwide. Today, it's more like 35%. So OPEC countries have a minimal impact, but making it even worse is the fact that OPEC countries themselves are divided. Countries like Nigeria and Venezuela, Iran, they would like to produce, you know, less oil and bring down or bring up the price rather, so that they could make more money. But a country like Saudi Arabia actually doesn't like that idea. They want to maintain their market share. And most of the Gulf countries, the Arab countries, are in agreement with that. So they want to keep production about where it is.
And Greg, looking at this, I mean, how long can we expect these low prices to last?
Well, here you'll get different opinions, but the consensus I've heard so far from people who are knowledgeable about the industry is that this will not be like the 1980s, where you had something like a 10-year drop in oil prices that remained low and hurt a lot of companies and hurt a lot of economies in the oil patch, let's say, the cities that were affected or the cities that were dominated by oil and gas industry. Now, this time, they're expecting it will last maybe a year or two. And even then, you can see some adjustments perhaps happening. Right now, for the immediate future, though, the price is headed downward. And so we don't know how far down it will go. Right now, it's still at a level where, especially the larger companies, you know, an ExxonMobil or a ConocoPhillips, they can still do okay and they can keep production up. But these smaller companies, as I say, some of them will cut back. Some of them may even go out of business. There will be mergers. We've already seen a huge merger take place here in Houston with Halliburton acquiring Baker Hughes. Now, these are oil services companies, but they're also, of course, affected by the slowdown in production and exploration.
So, Greg, then with all these effects that we're already seeing, what could be the long-term ramifications of this?
Long term, you'll see some consolidation in the oil and gas industry. You could also see a setback, maybe a little bit, for some of these alternative energies that cost a lot and which rely a lot on subsidies and that kind of thing. And part of that might be seen as deliberate because a big producer like Saudi Arabia wants to squeeze out this production. The Saudis don't like to hear about you know, alternative sources coming onto market. They want to keep their market share and you know, make sure their customers keep buying oil from them.
And our thanks, as always, to VOA's Greg Flakes. Of course, this is one of those issues where you've got some people benefiting, some people losing. Some experts are saying oil prices could continue to fall next year if producers don't cut back supply, but that's good news for consumers because it would mean more cuts in gas prices and savings in the billions of dollars for consumers, shippers, and airlines.
Now, staying on the topic of business and industry, we've got another installment for you of our series about the United States Young African Leaders Initiative, commonly called YALI. 500 young men and women came to the U.S. this year under the YALI program, known as the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders.
One of those 500 is a young man from Ivory Coast named Affre. He is the director of a company that makes cleaning products. VOA profiled him during his time in the U.S. Let's check it out.
Business and entrepreneurship was my track when I was in Clark Atlanta University for the 6 weeks training.
It's a course directly related to the production of the unit.
So they empower us in how to run business, our businesses, how to be efficient in the marketing, in the economy, okay, of the very small businesses.
Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, those are the big ones.
And this helped me a lot because I discovered new skills. My name is Andre Affre Denny Romerick, and I come from the Ivory Coast in West Africa. I'm the managing director of the MCC, that is the Modern Chemistry Company. My job is to manufacture cleaning products, liquid soap, bleaches, deodorant as well. And because I decided to start that business because having a good environment and also a good health is a big issue in our continent, in our country. You know, just recently you heard about the Ebola outbreak and also some other diseases that can be prevented only by having a good hygiene.
We've kind of taken Affre under our wing, and every event that we're doing, we invite him to go along, and he's been meeting people in the business communities, our business resource partners. I think Affre is learning a lot about partnerships, and that's what we rely on a lot within the business community to help small businesses grow.
I had a huge challenge in my country, that is to take some very small businesses from the informal sector to the formal sector. And this office is the best because they train me how to do it, how to how to run companies, and then how to get found and succeed. So I'm planning to do the same in my country back home, to establish a very small business administration just to help the very small business owners to start, grow, and succeed. I used to mentor young people back home in my country to help them get a job because I'm a trainer. I used to give them education on entrepreneurship, and for those who look for a job, I used to show them how to prepare themselves. One of the things that I will keep doing when back home is to share all the skills I acquired here with so many young people in my country, because there are plenty of them are waiting for me. At least 500 to 1,000 are waiting for me because I used to work with them in the different NGOs. So I will share, and I will keep you posted.
All right, switching gears now to a story about music. The feeling of attending a live musical performance, seeing your favorite singers, favorite musicians, is like no other. And Imran, as a musician yourself, I'm sure you know exactly what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
Well, what if you didn't have to go to a concert hall or a coffee house to see a show?
Wouldn't it be boring?
You know, not for many people, because there's a new trend that's taken hold, and that's called house concerts. And these are live shows by touring musicians taking place right in people's living rooms. I don't know, I think I would kind of like it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's a kind of performance that's been gaining a lot of popularity in the U.S. for years now. Reporter Mike Osborne takes us to a house concert in the home of country music, Nashville, Tennessee.
Check 1, 2, check 1, 2.
Singer-songwriter Annalise Emmerich is getting ready to play a show. It's something she does most nights in coffee houses, bars, auditoriums, and other small venues across the country. But tonight, she'll play for a handful of people in Christina Schultz's living room.
An artist will come into my house and play music, and I don't have to go anywhere. All I have to do is provide the atmosphere, which I am absolutely happy to do.
Schultz has been hosting concerts in her home for about 4 years. She's had as many as 30 people attend, usually a mix of friends, neighbors, family, and even strangers who find the shows listed on house concert websites.
We've done rock, we've had blues, we've had pop, folk, Pretty much anything we'll have here.
This is Annalise Emmerich, and we're very happy to have her straight from East Nashville.
House concerts have become an important part of Emmerich's income.
I can play a bar for $100, but I could play a house concert, and if there's 50 people there and they're all paying $20, like, I'm having a great night, and they're all buying CDs. It's amazing.
Emmerich says house concert audiences tend to make more dedicated fans. They stay connected, buy her new releases, and show up to hear her the next time she's in town.
They say home is where you're loved. Baby, I'm your home, so baby, baby, please come home.
And it's just a totally unique experience as opposed to playing like a coffee shop or a bar or something like that, where people usually are there, but you don't always know if they're there for you.
Please come home.
Yeah.
The show's intimate setting appeals to first-time house concert goers Steve and Janice Anderson.
You're just with a bunch of friends, you're sitting around listening to new music, and it's just...
Kind of like sitting around a campfire outside.
Right, like she said, it's just a level that you don't get when you go to a concert. It's more personal.
Charlie Dayan teaches music management courses at Middle Tennessee State University. Says house concerts are gaining in popularity, but can be financially risky for artists.
The downside for the artist is that most house concerts don't pay guarantees, so you have no assurity of how much money you're going to make, and in fact, most house concerts by law are not allowed to charge admission. Most of them can only do a suggested donation.
On the other hand, Dayan says house concerts can fill empty dates on an artist calendar and help build a loyal following. Emmerich says she's played in some homes so often her hosts have become close friends, even family.
They always say, you know, our door's open if you're traveling through and you need a place to stay in Virginia or something, or Maryland, or wherever you are. And so that's been really nice too, because these people are just good people that love music.
Emmerich says not every house concert goes quite as planned. He recently booked one in Idaho. Turned out the home was in a nudist colony. For VOA News, I'm Mike Osborne in Nashville.
You know, after watching those house concerts, I'm wondering if maybe you should be giving us a house concert right here in the house in our studio.
We could have, but I don't think you would have the time for my concert.
Oh, the time, right. Okay, well, our time is running out today, but we will be back next week with fresh stories about Syria's refugees, a college for American Indians, and a so-called laughter ministry.
And laughter is something that all of us can use. Be sure to check us out at voanews.com. Until next week, thank you so much for watching.